Let's go! Drop it. All right, live from the Polymarket studio in LA, Cenk Uygur, Jordan Uhl, Nina Turner, power panel for you guys. Senator Turner, great to have you back. All right. So
I was muted. Good to be back.
You know, the funny thing is, Nina, I didn't say anything because I wasn't sure if you were muted or I put my IFB in wrong. So anyways, all right. So let's get started. Huge show ahead for you guys. Developments in Trump's cases, and then developments, unfortunately, in Israel and here at home. What you're not allowed to say about Israel. Well, we're gonna say it later in the program. We'll see if there are consequences, especially me as a Columbia alumni. Apparently, I'm not allowed to say a lot of things. So, well, we'll see how that goes. Okay, let's get started with the Trump cases. Jordan, go ahead.
Take a look at this.
Ty, we're learning that 2 federal judges advised Cannon to step aside. She rejected them. You hear others, though, Dave Ehrenberg, saying that this was, maybe all of this is more a matter of inexperience than anything else. What do you take away from this?
I think with regard to Judge Cannon's behavior and her consistent rulings in Trump's favor, we're way beyond the point of characterizing her merely as inexperienced.
Trump's former White House lawyer Ty Cobb had some strong words for Judge Aileen Cannon, the Trump-appointed judge overseeing his classified documents case in Florida. He made those comments yesterday shortly after it was revealed that Cannon was actually urged to decline the case when it was randomly assigned to her last year, a suggestion that she rejected. According to reporting from the New York Times, shortly after Judge Aileen Cannon drew the assignment in June 2023, to oversee former President Donald Trump's classified documents case, 2 more experienced colleagues on the federal bench in Florida urged her to pass it up and hand it off to another jurist, according to 2 people briefed on the conversations. The judges who approached Judge Cannon, including the chief judge in the Southern District of Florida, Cecilia Altonga, each asked her to consider whether it would be better if she were to decline the high-profile case, allowing it to go to another judge, the 2 people said. But she wanted to keep the case, so she chose to ignore the advice of her more experienced colleagues. Remember, Cannon's assignment as judge in this case got a lot of attention because she barely has any previous trial experience. Plus, she had previously shown unusual favor to Trump by intervening in a way that helps him in the criminal investigation that led to his indictment, only to be reversed in a sharply critical rebuke by a conservative appeals court panel. She had barred investigators from gaining access to evidence recovered from the search of Mar-a-Lago. Judge Altonga allegedly called Cannon and used that situation to argue it would be bad optics for her to oversee this trial. But now Cannon is defiant and kept the case. She has indefinitely postponed the trial, even though both the prosecution and the defense had told her they could be ready to start this summer. Trump's lawyers had urged her to delay any trial until after the election, which she appears to be listening to. And if Trump wins in November, he could order the Justice Department to drop the case. Today, Cannon is hearing far-fetched arguments that the appointment of special counsel Jack Smith to oversee the documents case was unconstitutional. It's an attempt by Trump's team to kill the case altogether. Ty Cobb ripped Cannon apart for entertaining that argument and warned her to be careful before ruling in favor of Trump again. Take a look.
This all comes down to a request by Trump's team. They want to get Jack Smith fired, get rid of him as special counsel, say it's invalid in the Mar-a-Lago case. So what's really at stake here?
The fact she doesn't deny most of these motions without a hearing is silly. The fact that Trump can get a hearing, on the flimsiest arguments is shocking. The worst thing that could happen to her is that she actually does rule for Trump on this, because that would go to the 11th Circuit. And then I think this, petty partisan prima donna would be put in her place and they would remove her.
Petty partisan prima donna. Say that 3 times fast. Cenk, what do you make of this case?
I'm also against petty partisan Parmesan. I won't have it. Can't stand it. All right, so that's Ty Cobb. That's not only Trump's former lawyer at the White House, but that's obviously someone who's been very, very conservative throughout his career. But I know, MAGA, nothing counts. Everybody's deep state. So look, let me make some statements that distinguish things, both us from mainstream media and MAGA, right? So are there things where you go, okay, that seems weird. Merrick Garland, why did you wait 2.5 years to appoint a special counsel for Trump? That's weird, very weird. You're not wrong to think that, right? So was Madison Cawthorn smeared? Yes. Matt Gaetz, we've talked about recently. We don't like him, but that ethics committee investigation is deeply political. It's happened to our side, Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner, myself, 2 out of the 3 of us here have experienced it. Is that what's going on with Judge Cannon, where the deep state is stepping in and these judges are going, oh no, wait, don't do anything about Trump, and the other Trump appointed judges, Bush appointed judges keep overruling her? No. This is not deep state. This is not any conspiracy. This is just a judge who seems to be far too partisan. And her rulings, as I've told you, as she made them, I said, look, there's a lot of rulings that go on Trump's side where I go, yeah, that makes sense. There's some rulings that go against Trump where I go, I don't know that he should put up all the money while he's appealing his civil fraud case, right? So you've seen me be honest and fair about those things. Cannon is way outside the bounds. She's making crazy rulings that don't make any sense, and she's obviously delaying the trial until after the election. So super partisan. I don't know that there's a way to get her out of this. The other judges don't have purview, as Cobb explained, until she makes another absurd ruling. Then the 11th Circuit can step in. But until then, she's in charge of this trial, and I don't think there's any way that it's going to happen before the election. That's my sense of it. Nina, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I love that good alliteration, though. Who doesn't like a good alliteration? He did that. But no, I totally agree with what you're saying, Cenk. It is obvious that Judge Cannon lacks something that is vital to being a jurist, and that's integrity. And she has no shame in her game, because there probably won't be any consequences but for her getting caught up, as you just laid out, a ruling, and then another level of judges smacking her down. But nothing heretofore has seemed to stop her crusade, and she's doing it all out in the open. So I guess if there's any positive to this negative, is she's being very transparent in her unbridled support for Donald J. Trump. This should not be on a bench. I mean, if she wanted to be political like this, she should have ran for another office. But when you're a jurist, this should not be the case.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna give one more word to one of our members. Art Guy wrote in with a really powerful point, and that's why we love doing the show with members. Hit the join button below. Ty Cobb is evolving from a 19th century carny into Santa Claus. That should also be noted for the record. That is true. Ty Cobb, because he used to have like real old school suits with that same look, but now when you put on the flannel shirt, now we're entering Santa Claus territory. Look, guys, we can have fun with the news, and tell you the reality at the same time. Cannon doesn't belong on this case, but she's on the case. You can't remove her. That trial is pretty much dead. And look, my sense of it is, if Trump loses, whoever wins is going to drop a lot of these cases. If it's Joe Biden, another Democrat, etc. And then they're going to prove, ironically, that it was political. right? So I don't think these trials are going anywhere. And with Cannon leading this one, totally dead in the water.
Yeah. Well,
Important point, Jane. We should not lose that point that you just made. These cases are going to go away, and it is going to prove what some people already believe is the case.
Yeah. Well, let's get into our next story. Take a look at this.
Israel and Hezbollah seem to be closer than ever to a full-blown war, with escalating attacks on both sides against civilian and military targets. Israel has warned the Lebanese government that the whole country, not just Hezbollah in the south, would suffer heavy damage in an Israeli bombardment. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah says any deal to end the fighting with Israel is tied to a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza.
Tensions between Israel and Lebanon's Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah seem to have reached a boiling point, with both sides now warning of an expanded war in the Middle East. Hezbollah is an ally of Hamas and has been exchanging strikes with Israel almost daily since the war in Gaza erupted on October 7th. Since then, Israeli strikes have killed more than 400 people in Lebanon, most of them Hezbollah and other militants, but also over 80 civilians and non-combatants. In northern Israel, 16 soldiers and 11 civilians have been killed by strikes launched from Lebanon. More than 150,000 people have also been displaced from their homes. Hezbollah ramped up attacks after Israel expanded its offensive into Rafah in May and again in June after an Israeli strike killed high-ranking Hezbollah commander Taleb Abdullah. Last week, after Abdullah was killed, the group launched its largest attack since the war began, firing more than 200 projectiles into Israel. No casualties were reported. Then tensions escalated. This Tuesday, when a 10-minute-long video allegedly filmed by Hezbollah surveillance drone was released. It shows strategic military and civilian sites in Israel, including parts of Haifa, which is a city far from the Israel-Lebanon border. It was seen as a veiled threat to Israel, not to escalate the conflict, because a strike on Haifa would likely trigger an all-out war. In a speech on Wednesday, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah said the group has much more footage and warned that there will be no safe place from our missiles and our drones if an all-out war breaks out. If the war is imposed, the resistance will fight without constraints, rules, or limits. He said that only a permanent ceasefire in Gaza would bring about peace. On Tuesday, the Israeli army said it has approved and validated plans for an offensive in Lebanon, although the decision to actually launch such an operation would have to come from the country's political leadership. Israel's military capabilities far outweigh Hezbollah's, but the group's arsenal has grown significantly in recent years. The United States and Israel estimate the group, along with other Lebanese militant factions, has about 150,000 missiles and rockets. Hezbollah has been working on precision-guided missiles. So we're looking at a wider war in the Middle East potentially, but Jank, do you think diplomacy can affect the outcome here, or is this inevitable?
Look, I don't want to say anything's inevitable, and I don't know enough about internal Israeli political dynamic to be able to say that that it's definitely going to happen, and we're going to have this giant war between Israel and Lebanon, and it's going to spread to Iran. I can't say that definitively. Having said that, this is definitely headed in the wrong direction. There's no question about that. And so, is it true that both sides are firing missiles at one another? Yes. Has Hezbollah fired hundreds of missiles into Israel? Yes. Has it hit a lot of people? No, because Israel has Iron Dome and great defense system. Does that make it less morally culpable? No, it doesn't, okay? It's still wrong to do that, no question. Now, has Israel killed even more people on the other side with better bombs and bombs that have no protection against them? Yeah, of course, and you just saw the numbers. Israel's killed 480, Hezbollah has killed 27. So now, again, Hezbollah doesn't get a pass. They're trying to kill more, they just can't. Right? Now, having said that, Israel also doesn't get a pass. So, but their civilian to fighter ratio here is way better than it is in Gaza. So that's silver lining in an otherwise super dark cloud. But at least they kill a lot less civilians here, as compared to Hezbollah fighters, as a Hamas to Palestinian ratio in Gaza, which is absolutely disastrous. Okay, so the question is what's better for the world, for Lebanon, and for Israel, right? So those are the questions. For Lebanon, it's easy. This is going to be an epic disaster if this war starts. Lebanon's going to be destroyed, and it's probably the humanitarian toll is going to be catastrophic. For the world, also easy. A terrible development. Not only does it make it a broader war in the Middle East, already a disaster for everyone except bank speculators, oil companies, and defense contractors, and of course AIPAC. So, but outside of them, everyone gets hurt, let alone if it jumps over to Iran, we're infinitely screwed. The Middle East is screwed, America's screwed. Guaranteed we have to send soldiers, guaranteed we have to send billions, maybe trillions of dollars. Remember, we spent a couple of trillion in Iraq. Iran is 4 times larger. And there's no way that a war starts and American politicians go, no, we won't take Israel's side, we'll be neutral. No, we will be forced to go on Israel's side and spend all of our blood and money and treasure for a war that doesn't need to happen at all, that Netanyahu is definitely trying to start. So now, again, if you live in Washington, you're likely a lunatic, and so you'll say things like, it's all Hezbollah's fault. They're dirty terrorists, and they deserve to be killed. And all their leaders should be killed, and all their leaders and all their fighters should be killed. But Israel should never be touched under any circumstances. Okay, if you want a war, you say unreasonable, lunatic things like that, right? The reality is, Israel is killing Hezbollah's leaders, and then when Hezbollah fires back, they're like, "Oh my God, I did not expect that." Wink. Now I have to bomb them even more. You see all the rockets they fired at me. Boom, I killed another leader. Now they fired even more rockets. Oh my God, it looks like I have to expand the war to stay in power, says Netanyahu. So does this help get to the final question, the only question that anyone in power cares about? Does this help Israel? And you have to scream it from the rooftops. No, it doesn't help Israel. If the whole point is a haven for Jews across the world so they could finally be safe and secure, why would you want to start a war with all of your neighbors? Like, I get it. You think in 1948, when you declared that half their land was yours, that you think they started the war. I get it. And Egypt, and then in 67 and 73, the Arab nations did start the wars, okay? But now you think that you, Israel, led by Netanyahu and this lunatic right-wing government, starting wars all across the region with all of your neighbors is a good idea? Because I know, look, the propaganda is so thick that if you're talking to an Israeli supporter, they think we are the most innocent people on earth, the only thing that we do is respond. I mean, these guys, they all hate us. They all hate us just because of who we are. No, not because we've ever done anything wrong. We've never done anything wrong. It's just everybody hates the Jews. They're all anti-Semites. We have to kill all the anti-Semites. How long is that gonna take? How many countries do you have to bomb? How many wars do you have to start? Because if you say, I bombed you and now I can't believe you hate Jews or Israel, so I'm gonna have to bomb you more, that logic is going to start a ton of wars, and it's in the middle of doing it now. This war starts, and it is an epic disaster for Israel. It's the only thing that actually endangers Israel. What if Hezbollah is right? Well, I mean, I think they're full of crap, but what if they actually do have drones and missiles that could reach Haifa or Tel Aviv? What if they do have 100,000 soldiers and now maybe even more? And what if, like Hamas, they find a way to breach the borders of Israel? And now you got fighters inside Israel? Oh, we're never gonna get out of that war, and Israel's gonna be devastated, Lebanon's gonna be devastated, and America is going to be 100% screwed. But the only people that can stop it are people who are pro-Israel. Because if you criticize Israel in America, you have no power, zero. No one will listen to you at all. So, and it doesn't matter where you go. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, RFK Jr., all of them say, I will never question Israel. I will do whatever I am ordered to do, and I will make sure that America will do anything that lunatic right-wing leader of Israel commands us to do. And if that hurts your feelings, I'm tired of your feelings. That's a stone cold fact, and we're all seeing it with our own eyes. They're spending $14 million against Jamal Bowman. They spent $4 million against Nina Turner, our panelist here, in AIPAC and AIPAC related funds. And then they pretend, oh no, you can't say it. I can spend the 14 million and say, I demand loyalty to Israel, which is a foreign nation. They can say that, and they can demand that. But if you say, can you please not demand it? Anti-Semite, no, I'm done with that. I don't care. You're gonna get us into a giant war, and guess what it's gonna do? It's gonna drive up anti-Semitism across the world to catastrophic levels, catastrophic. And that's the only way you can lose America. Because after we spend a couple of $1 trillion and lose God knows how many thousands of American soldiers, do you think that the American population is still gonna be pro-Israel? I don't think so. I think they're going to be very, very anti-Israel. What are you doing? Why are you playing with this fire? All for the career of Benjamin Netanyahu? You'd have to be nuts to support that madman. Nina.
Yeah, lunacy, Jink. I mean, look, I'm amen, and I could have listened to you go on and on about this. No good will come out of this. And this is what we need our viewers to understand. No good can come from expanding a war in the Middle East. Zero, nada, nothing, never. It just will not. And it will ultimately, Reverend Dr. King once said, what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. People who are directly wounded literally by this, but then there are going to be the pains that are felt across the globe because of this. Nobody, and I mean nobody, will be unscathed. Another thing in science, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It doesn't make those reactions right, especially when it comes to killing innocent civilian or any innocent person at all. But Jink, your point is well taken in that you do these things to people and then you expect them not to do anything back. That just does not make sense. So for people who care about Israel, people who care about Israelis, people who care about the American Jewish population in this country, them expanding the Middle East war will not go well for any of us, non-Jews included. It will be bad all the way around, and it will be bad generationally. We cannot war our way to peace. And I don't understand what people can't understand, and just the cavalier attitude of leadership. Even the Hezbollah leader, y'all do that, we coming for you. Well, Israel will come for us. As if there's not flesh and blood people, even people who've signed up for the various militaries. People's physical lives are on the line, and you got leaders who are comporting themselves worse than toddlers when it comes to, we just gonna start bombing you, really? And if this expands, God forbids, to a WW3, it's over for all of us. So now all of this is pretty personal now. And you're right, Jink, the American people are already saying enough is enough. If in fact the United States is pulled into a protracted war in the Middle East, it is going to get even worse, and it will be justifiable in how the American people are feeling. How is it we got all this money for war making, but we have no money to deal with the domestic needs of the American people right here, right now?
After Israel wiped out a vast majority of Gaza's telecommunications infrastructure, at a recent UN forum, Israel is now opposing a proposal aimed at rebuilding that infrastructure, claiming Palestinian connectivity was a ready-made weapon for Hamas, also stating that the original resolution would distort the reality of what's going on in Gaza and doesn't address how Hamas has used the internet to prepare acts of terror against Israeli civilians. One policy advisor with the digital rights group Access now said, based on this rationale, Gaza will never have internet. I mean, that was a vital conduit for people in Gaza to show the world the suffering that the IDF was inflicting on them. These are civilians. These aren't Hamas militants. Everyone uses the internet, sure, so to some degree Hamas is going to use it, of course, but we saw the horrors and devastation of this war from civilians. They are essentially begging for help on social media, showing the world, please intervene, help us achieve peace. And now, Cenk, Israel's saying, no, we're not gonna rebuild this telecommunications infrastructure that we destroyed.
Yeah, I mean, they leveled Gaza, 85% of Gaza is gone. I mean, we have lunatics in Washington who say that it's Gaza's fault and that they haven't done enough. We have to send them more money to destroy Gaza more. 15% is left. So they say, well, we can't build telecommunications, no internet, no communications, no nothing. They have to live in the Stone Ages forever. Because if any Palestinian has it, then Hamas has it. Well, does that logic apply to food and water? Well, actually, yes. Right now, the reason why they're slowing down all humanitarian aid into Gaza is they're like, well, if the Palestinians have water, then Hamas will have water. So let's cut off all the water. And well, so they slowed down the water and the food that got in, and a whole bunch of people died from starvation. And so this is collective punishment. But my favorite part of this, favorite is a weird word to use in this case, but it's such an overwhelming hypocrisy that it's just mind-bending. So they say, now, we are going to block you having anything in Gaza that would allow you to live a normal life, but we don't occupy Gaza. Like if you go on social media now and say Gaza's occupied, you'll get a slew of pro-Israel bots and trolls, and maybe even some real people who are like, no, it's not occupied. No, Gaza's perfectly free. I mean, do you have any idea how insane you sound? They're not allowed to have food and water unless we allow a tiny amount. They're not allowed to have electricity. We bomb the living crap out of it, and now they're not allowed to have any telecommunications. But we don't occupy it. Totally free, not occupied. And the fact that it's not free is not our fault, it's Hamas's fault. And look, next thing they'll say, and I'm afraid might even be literal, given that they suffocated them without the water and the food for a long time, and still to this moment. They might say, well, if we have oxygen in Gaza, then Hamas will get the oxygen. So we're gonna have to cut off all of the oxygen. And by the way, though, we're not the bad guys. No. Occupying someone for 57 years, humiliating them daily, subjecting them to overwhelming oppression, and then killing them at our leisure whenever the hell we want, tens of thousands of their children and their women. But we're the victims. We're the oppressed, because they're all dirty anti-Semites. So we had to kill them. Well, again, under this logic, you're gonna have to kill a lot more people, because the more you kill innocent children, the more you create what you think is anti-Semitism, and then the more people you have to kill. And it goes in around and around, and then they go, I can't believe people are against Israel. I mean, all we're doing is saying you're not allowed to have anything. You live under our thumb, and you'll never have anything because you're a dirty Palestinian who I view as all terrorists, and I can't believe you guys are upset with me. Well, look, man, you want to be a lunatic, that's your business. But now understand that if you're still supporting this kind of lunacy, to the rest of the world, I'm trying to help you. I'm your friend. I know you don't believe I'm your friend. You think, oh my God, this guy's telling the truth about Israel. Shut him up, right? But I'm trying to help you idiots. You're making the whole world hate you. But now you're gonna say no electricity, no telecommunications, no internet for all these Palestinians. They're all guilty. I'm the good guy. I'm the most moral army. No, you look like the biggest jackasses in the world. And again, if that hurts your feelings, take it up with Netanyahu. I'm not the one doing it. He's the one doing it. I'm the one reporting it accurately. No, I know, no. Israel's the greatest, most wonderful thing on earth. Guys, if you don't live in America, you have no idea how frustrating it is to live here. And to have everyone in mainstream media and almost all of our politicians lie 24/7 and say the most absurd things you have ever heard, and then say you're the bad guy for pointing out things that are true. All right, Nina.
It's lunacy, Jink. I mean, the way to defeat Hamas, and might I remind our viewers that Netanyahu propped up Hamas, but I'll put that in the parking lot. The way to defeat Hamas is to give self-determination and true liberation to Palestinians so that you are not breeding hatred by which is coming because of the way the Palestinians have been treated for generations. I mean, that is what's going on here. So the true freedom for both Israelis and Palestinians comes by true self-determination, safety and security for Palestinians, safety and security for Israelis and Israel. That is the way to gain it. Short of that, we're gonna be revisiting this type of situation, unfortunately, generation after generation, as we are right now. It's never going to go away until Palestinians have true self-determination. That doesn't make it right. I mean, obviously, without a doubt, what Hamas did on October the 7th was rotten, against international law, immoral, killing 1,200 innocent people, wounding others. Since that day, this collective punishment that is going on is wrong, the starvation that is happening, the famine-like conditions, and we know that the International Court has labeled what Israel has since done to the Palestinian people as genocide, as other leaders in some of these world organizations going against international law. Our country is going against our own law, the Foreign Assistance Act that the president is just thumbing his nose at, that basically says once it is brought to an American president's attention that a country that we're supplying military aid to is blocking humanitarian aid, we must stop supplying them weapons. But we haven't done anything. So Jink, the answer to this, and Jordan, the answer to this lies in self-determination for the Palestinian people. That is ultimately how we protect Israel and Israelis. And to get rid of right-wing leaders, Netanyahu, who's just pouring gasoline literally on the fire.
Yeah, well, actually, in how the tents burned in Rafah, that's, again, very literal. So last quick thing here. Guys, to Nina's point, there's actually an easy way out of this. You think there's no way there's an easy way. Yes, you just make a peace deal like you did with Egypt. And that worked. It worked for 40 straight years, 50 years. They haven't fired a single bomb from Egypt into Israel. It's provided the safe haven that you wanted. You make the similar one with the Palestinians. You give them a fraction of the West Bank and Gaza Strip that they started with. And I know your leaders are lying to you. They say, the Palestinians don't want a state. They'll never take a deal. They just want to kill us all. That's lunacy. It's totally untrue. It's a complete and utter fabrication. Hamas has already even renounced their charter publicly. It doesn't matter what's in their goddamn charter. You always negotiate with your enemies, not your best friends. So that's, the Egyptians hated the Israelis 10,000 times more. Anwar Sadat was killed because he made a peace deal with the Israelis, but it worked. Peace deals work, and it could get not only the Palestinians a state, but it could finally provide a safe haven for people inside Israel. The people preventing it are not either pro-Israel or anti-Israel. The people preventing it are pro-war for their own political purposes. And the current strategy is asinine. So what they do is they go, okay, we're gonna get all of our people in America, whoever they can influence, whether it's politicians that they flat out bribe through campaign donations, media figures, so whoever they can influence, right? They don't control everything, that's ridiculous. But whatever influence they have, they say, okay, we're just gonna ban all criticism of Israel. Imagine if anyone else did that. Like, let's take my ethnicity. If they said to me, okay, we're gonna ban all criticism of the Turkish government and Turks, and we're gonna say it's anti-Turkish, and that's the most toxic word in the English language now, and you just can accuse anyone of being anti-Turkish and they'll have to shut up forever. They'll get arrested if they do a protest of you, they'll be imprisoned, they'll be kicked out of college. You get carte blanche. You know what I would scream? No, they'll hate us. They'll hate us, don't do that. So now that's the strategy that they've got. Okay, we have a great idea. We're just gonna make America pay all of our bills. And then if anybody criticizes it, we're gonna tell them that they're shut up, you're canceled, you're fired, you're arrested. Well, if you did that to my ethnicity, I would be livid, because that would mean that everyone else would hate us. That's obvious human nature. How can you be this blind and stupid? So please, for God's sake, make a peace deal. All right, we gotta take a break. We'll be back. on TYT. 36 Chambers Dragon at TYT.com says, double dose of Senator Turner and Jordan. Great to see everyone. Excellent Friday and Power Panel. Keep up the peaceful fight, TYT fam. Thank you, appreciate it. Louis Cypher says, very powerful panel, appreciate that. Pineapple Pizza says, Canada is 100% looking for a seat on the Supreme Court if the orange pylon wins. Yeah, look, if you're looking at it purely strategically from a career perspective, Eileen Cannon is not wrong. She's wrong on the law, but she's like, look, if Trump loses, I'm in the same place I am today. No one respects me, I'm not gonna be able to move up. But if I kiss Trump's ass and make sure I kill one of his trials, I could wind up on the Supreme Court. Because the only thing Trump cares about is loyalty, and I'm the most loyal judge in the country to him. That's a fair point. So you're right, that's very likely what she's thinking, and it's not crazy thinking. L. Johnson 4922 says, Israel at war with the world or just trying to be? Well, look, that's the crazy part. Like, I got family who goes to Israel. I got friends who go to Israel. I want it to be safe and beautiful place. And they're never gonna be safe this way. Again, if Erdogan, the guy that I can't stand, who's the leader of Turkey, decides that he's gonna start a war with every country that surrounds him, I'd be like, no, don't. Why? Then I can't go back to, I can't do, and then we're all gonna be hated. Why? Why would you do that? He would be my top enemy. But nope. We're not gonna see anything. We're just gonna be blind, and we're gonna start a war with the whole world, and then blame the world for anti-Semitism. Okay, great strategy. Keep going, see how it turns out. All right. This is your Bardo, we are just tulpas, writes in. Netanyahu wants to push the US into a war with Iran. He just called Iran the mutual enemy of both. Yeah, he does that all the time. No, brother, I got news for you. Yeah, I can't stand the mullahs who run Iran, but they're not my enemy. They never did anything to me. Why do I have to attack Iran? Why do I have to go to war with Iran? Why do I have to send my kids to go die in Iran? Are you nuts? Why do I have to spend $1 to start a war with Iran? Iran's not my enemy. If Iran's Israel's enemy, that's their goddamn problem. Oh, you can't say that. Israel, then America. Well, and then what is Russia, Saudi Arabia, then America. Okay, whatever. Okay, and Russia is by the right wing, but not the left wing. But every wing agrees Saudi Arabia and Israel above America. Not every wing, the left wing, the right wing, hate it. Our politicians are corrupt politicians, gorging on Saudi money, Qatar money, UAE money, Israel money. Yeah, start wars, make America pay for it. Whether they're a Muslim state or a Jewish state. Jesus Take the Wheel says Hezbollah doesn't want to start a full-blown war with Israel. Yeah, you know how I know that? Because they weren't part of October 7th. They make it sound like Hezbollah attacked on October 7th. They didn't. Israel attacked. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan, and Nina with you guys. Jordan's on Rebel headquarters. Nina's organization is wearesomebody.org. Make sure you check that out. It's a beautiful, wonderful organization. Jordan also does the Insurgents podcast. Box, thank you for gifting 2 memberships and upgrading your account on YouTube. You can do that through the join button too. And then one quick comment, Gabby Merida says, this feels like, no, I'm sorry. She said, is Cenk wearing a Hostmates shirt? I am indeed, Hostmates, right there, all right? So that's on Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern. You're gonna love it. It's a game that we're all gonna play. You could play along, tyt.com/Hostmates. Take a look at the trivia about TYT. And remember, Charlemagne the God also going to be on the show at 6 o'clock on Monday, but I don't have a Charlemagne shirt. Okay, Jordan. Oh, sorry, me. Let's watch this.
Governor Newsom out in California, I agree with you, banned phones from the classroom. And now in Governor Hochul, I agree with you. When it comes to social media, algorithm websites, social media sites like Instagram and TikTok, which is technically gonna be banned shortly anyway, it's time to keep them away from kids in New York.
I can't believe I'm saying this. She's now more popular with me. I mean, I don't really like her policies, but I like this one.
I don't know.
All right, we're going to tell you the real reason why all of a sudden Fox News is agreeing with Democratic governors. They both want to shut down social media, but I think for a completely different reason. And I'm going to propose this poll. We'll put it up as a snap poll right now. Looking forward to your opinion on it. Should mainstream media have warning labels? Because they're thinking of doing warning labels. I think mainstream media is full of crap and lies to the American people 24/7. So I think it should have a warning label. And warning, you're about to watch CNN, they're definitely going to lie to you. You're warning, you're about to watch Fox News, they're definitely going to lie to you. So, okay, well, we'll discuss all that, but you can start voting now. Jordan, tell us the whole story.
As you saw, Fox and friends were stunned to find out that they agreed with Governors Gavin Newsom of California and Kathy Hochul of New York. Newsom wants the California legislature to ban smartphones in school classrooms, and Hochul just signed a bill forcing social media companies to make their algorithms display content in chronological order only for children under 18. And they're not the only ones looking to regulate how children use social media apps. Vivek Murthy, who is the Surgeon General of the US, made the case in a New York Times op-ed on Monday, arguing that the mental health risks associated with social media platforms warrant the use of Surgeon General warning labels, similar to cigarettes. Murthy wrote, "It is time to require a Surgeon General's warning on social media platforms, stating that the social media is associated with a significant mental health harms for adolescents. A Surgeon General's warning label, which requires congressional action, would regularly remind parents and adolescents that social media has not been proved safe. Additionally, companies must be required to share all of their data on health effects with independent scientists and the public. Currently, they do not. And allow independent safety audits. While the platforms claim they are making their products safer, Americans need more than words. We need proof." He went on to draw parallels between social media and tobacco products, arguing warning labels will help change user behavior. Evidence from tobacco studies show that warning labels can increase awareness and change behavior. When asked if a warning from a Surgeon General would prompt them to limit or monitor their children's social media use, 76% of people in one recent survey of Latino parents said yes. Now, pressure has been mounting on tech giants to exercise more caution and oversight of what is on their platform and who sees it. In October, a coalition of 33 states sued Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, over accusations that the company had misled the public about the mental health risks for young people and teens. In 2021, a trove of internal documents obtained by the Wall Street Journal showed that Meta, at the time still operating under the name Facebook, was aware of studies showing that Instagram use was linked to issues of anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, and suicidal ideation, especially among teen girls. Cenk, how do you feel about social media use with young people knowing the risks that they deal with, knowing the symptoms and the effects that it has on their minds? Do you think it should have labels? Is this a good idea? Would this change anything?
Yeah, so two giant different issues here. One is, why is mainstream media and politicians, why are they targeting social media? And the other is, should we do something about the actual deleterious effects of social media? So the real reason why other mainstream media and politicians care is because social media is, in their minds, producing a lot of progressive voters, and they hate it. And if you're saying, wait, why would the Democrats hate that? No, Democratic leadership is very anti-progressive. They hate progressives 10,000 times more than they hate Republicans. They actually largely agree with Republicans. Donors should get everything they want. But and they'd get away with it if it wasn't for these damn kids, right? These rascally kids like Scooby-Doo, right? And they're all on social media, and they're all saying that they're progressive and actually want universal health care and higher wages when they should be loving corporate rule. God damn them. They should go back to the propaganda outlets like CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News. And so they won't listen to our propaganda anymore. We hate them. Let's pretend that we're worried about depression and start banning them or labeling them, etc. I mean, look, Mitt Romney admitted it. He said when talking to Anthony Blinken, that he's like, well, I'm surprised Israel used to do really good propaganda. They're not good at it anymore. So we're banning TikTok because there's so many people against Israel on TikTok. He said it. He said it. Okay. And Blinken's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So look, it's not just about Israel. It's just overall in politics. The Bernie Sanders wing of politics first comes for the Democrats, then it comes for the Republicans. And they both hate it. So that's the real reason they're doing this. They're not worried about you or your kids at all, in my opinion. Okay, so and so you think Hochul and Newsom want to run against strong progressives in primaries? No, they do not. They hate the progressives. So anyways, but does social media actually cause the harm that they're talking about? Yes. So then that puts us in a tough spot. We don't want to say, oh yeah, let's ban it and everybody must watch CNN and love corporate rule, right? And that's your only option. Besides which, even if you tried it, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. Even if we banned all the social media, other countries would have social media. And then we'd become like Iran. Okay, who do we ban? How do we stop it? Don't let the information get in. Tell them corporations are good. They don't need health care. They should have the crappiest wages and the executives should make 2,000 times, 2 million times more than them. Shush, social media, block them. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So we have to have a smart strategy for dealing with the actual issues, psychological issues, and sociological issues that things like Instagram are creating. And if we're worried about social media, the #1 cause of concern should be Instagram. And instead of Instagram, we're talking about TikTok, we're talking about YouTube. Why? A lot of this propaganda, as we showed you in an earlier show, is funded by Facebook. So in the beginning, it was mainstream media that were attacking all social media because that's their competitor. They never clarified that's our competitor and we're getting our ass handed to us by them. They all pretend, oh, we are genuinely concerned. They are doing things that will affect your kids. How about you guys? Are you doing propaganda that might affect our kids? Oh, you're just bummed it's not working anymore. But if you're concerned, yeah, Instagram is driving kids to compare themselves to the most attractive people in the world, and they don't even look like that. It's their fake image, right? And even if they did, yes, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Some of them are gonna be way hotter than you, right? But nobody ever tells the kids that. Some of them are gonna be richer than you. But we used to have a village where there'd be one rich person or a couple of really attractive people, et cetera, or a couple of successful people, and we could live with it. Now we see example after example. We all live in this global village where it's rubbed in our face 24/7. That person's better than you. That person's better than you. You gotta, and there is one answer that I know for sure. In terms of what the government should do, I'm scared to death of the government touching this at all. They almost, in situations like this, when you have entrenched power, they usually make it worse, right? But one thing I'm gonna ask all of you to do is parents, talk to your kids. And don't talk to them in goofy ways. When I showed him that Fox News clip, I didn't show it to him. My 13-year-old son was about to turn 14, happened to be at the same table as I was getting ready for the show and I was listening to that clip. And when they said, oh, well, you know, at the end, Kilmeade of that segment, the Kilmeade says, well, you know, you should tell your kids that it's something like it's shameful and you should stay off of social media. And Pro literally laughed out loud, like he startled me. He's like, like that's gonna work. Oh yeah, don't go on social media. No, you have to have a real conversation with them. Guys, a lot of these people aren't real, even if they're real. That's not what you should compare yourself to. Here should be, like, talk about what their life goals should be, what their aspirations should be, that aren't just about material success, aren't just about looking better and being richer and all these things. The hard work of parenting. Nina, what do you think?
Yeah, the merit in what the Surgeon General is trying to do is spot on. I mean, brain development studies show clearly that that type of development happens at the age or well after the age of 25. And so when you have young people who are born into this, I mean, we have whole generations that this technology existed the moment that they were born. This is all they know. And Jink, your point is spot on about the difference between the political rationale for wanting to do away with social media apps and social media altogether, and then the merit that is linked to some of the health concerns about what it does to the mental stability of younger people, especially as they mature and the stage that they are in. Parents are absolutely the key. It is not the government on this. Now, that doesn't mean that there should not be regulations to protect us, not just go after TikTok, but go after all the social media platforms to make sure that they are following the best practices to protect us as American people and do more to try to protect younger folks. But ultimately, the diet for social media has to be controlled by parents, just like anything else. We could say the same thing. I mean, 50 years ago or 20 years ago, it was just the television. You know, how much TV should children watch? There are studies out there that says that if children watch too much TV, it can have a detrimental effect. Now that we're in the age of social media, you just quadruple those impacts. So what influencers, what stimuli are we allowing our children to take in? The first, second, third, fourth, and fifth line of defense is parents and community.
Yeah, I'm gonna add the last things here because I gotta give you the poll results. But we started Operation Joy here because we're trying to be proactive. You know, there's a lot of things that are depressing in media overall and in social media. So one of the things that I emphasize in Operation Joy, it's the thing we do for our members on Tuesdays in the bonus episode, is stop judging yourself so harshly and stop letting everyone else judge you. Because we're judging ourselves into oblivion. Oh my God, I'm not as good as this. Oh, I made a mistake. Oh, you made a mistake, did you? Welcome to humanity. We all make mistakes. We all make hundreds of mistakes, thousands of mistakes in our lives. Stop beating yourself up so much. So if you see something going wrong in the world, be proactive in putting out the opposite message, right? So there are healthy, constructive ways to tackle this without bans and warnings that are never gonna work. They're gonna make it feel like it's cooler to participate in this. Super last thing on the content is, on that Fox segment, they were talking about, I think it's a good idea to have internet, social media free zones around schools. These are the same guys that said, oh yeah, got free zones around schools, that'll never work. Now they're like, social media, it's way more dangerous than guns, it gets people to vote against us. Make sure it's banned everywhere. So it does work, you just don't want guns banned. You want social media banned. Okay, so now note for the record. Now, what did you guys think? How about social mainstream media having warning labels? I love the Twitch audience. 96% yes, 4% no. The YouTube chat poll, 79-21. You get it on tyt.com, 83-17. Everybody agrees. Yeah, the #1 warning label should come with the propaganda of mainstream media that's gonna tell you that politicians are honest and the millions of dollars that they took to serve large and corporate donors doesn't affect them at all. They're just having principled debates. I mean, you gotta give people a warning. This is propaganda, it's not actual news. Okay, we gotta go. We'll come right back, have at least one more story for you. All right, by the way, I should remind you that, so you know Hostmates is on Monday. It's gonna be at 8 o'clock Eastern. But you could also win prizes. So that's another reason to go to tyt.com/Hostmates. There's a little poll at the bottom. It's kind of like a kidding poll that is like, because the answers are the same. But that's the thing that gets you to be able to be registered for a prize. So that's why you should do that one. But then the box up in the upper green at tyt.com/Hostmates is you get to play TYT trivia as well. So see, I think it'll be a lot of fun. Participate if you can. All right, let's go to our members. Join button below writes in, new rule, any nation at war must hold an election or referendum every 3 months to ask if the war should continue. Make this a requirement for UN membership. I kind of love the idea. And I think there should be a mandatory draft if we're ever gonna have a war in any country. Israel does have a mandatory draft, that didn't help, but we don't. So the rich people never go to war anymore in this country. They always just send your kids to go die. They send your money, go pay for it. So if you're gonna do a war, we're gonna vote on it every 3 months and your kids have to go. So especially if you voted for it. So, but they're never gonna do any of that because rich people run this country. So now let's go to Twitch, Dave Smith 311, as always an American hero, gifted 4 subs. You're awesome, brother. Your name pops into my head from time to time. So that's how many times you've donated and I appreciate it. Jules to you says, Nita, M. Modork says, it's like saying, this is about that Gaza's not occupied. It's like saying guards don't stay in the cell with the inmates, so I guess they're free. That's actually a really good analogy I might use going forward. So nice job. So now we go to YouTube members. Our Georgia Suburban Homestead writes in, although you never recognize what I say, I'm still here. There, I just recognized it. All problems solved. Okay, much love, brother. Brandy Nuance says, Anna's on vacation and Cenk wears a T under his jacket. Okay, no, the thugs at shoptyt.com made me wear this shirt. Hostmates, Monday, don't forget, okay? Verbato1 writes in, happy Friday, Cenk and TYT. Vietnam vet and 3-year survivor. My cat lung scan report was good. Thank you for helping me focus on issues that matter. Whoever gifted me before, thanks. Today, I'm now officially TYT. That's awesome. Welcome, we appreciate you. I love our members of our community, and our members of our community actually stick up for one another. And when you're in tough times, they're there to support you. I love this community. And look at that, that's the light in the world. We're being proactive in bringing that. Operation Hope, Operation Joy. So we're gonna fight back in every way we can. Chris Malapores with a really interesting comment. Think about it for a second. Thou shalt ban this panel in a Louisiana classroom because you're killing it. Get it? Get it? Okay, we're gonna talk about that in the second hour. I love it. I love all you guys. All right, we'll be right back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Jordan, and Nina with you guys. Milton Boral, thank you for joining. We appreciate you. Milton hit the button below, became an American hero. Vicky R gifted a membership. Our Georgia Suburban Homestead also gifted one. I just read your comment. Gabby Mathis and Jesse gifted 5. You guys are amazing. We appreciate you. All right, Jordan.
Watch this.
RFK says the CIA killed his uncle. Do you believe that?
Well, this wasn't CIA that asked me, but I think CIA was probably behind it.
On yesterday's installment of the All In podcast, Donald Trump stated that he believes the CIA most likely assassinated JFK. We'll get to a little bit more of his response in a minute, but we should note that the topic came up when one of the show's hosts, Chamath Palihapitiya, asked Trump why he did not release the full JFK files despite previously promising he would. Let's see how Trump responded. Take a look.
Yeah. I actually did do it. I released a lot, as you know. But when it came to the whole thing, I was hit by some people that worked for me that are great people that you would respect. And they asked me not to do it. And I'm saying, why? Tell me why. And they said, sir, I think it needs a little more time. And I released a lot, but I said, if they feel so strongly, I respect the people and would have done that again. But this time, I'm just going to do it.
Now, let's see Trump's response and explanation of whether or not he thinks the CIA actually killed JFK.
Well, this wasn't CIA that asked me, but I think CIA was probably behind it. But they didn't. They would have preferred that I not release the rest of it. So we did give quite a bit. It's going to be done early on. A lot of people want to see that. And whatever it may say, I won't say. I sort of have an idea. But whatever it is, it'll be very interesting for people to see. And we're going to have to learn from it.
Promise us you'll come back again, Mr.
You know,
President.
there are other things we're going to release too. We're going to release.
Oh, really? Like what? What else do you got?
We'll talk to you about it off camera.
Aliens?
Cenk, is this just him saying what they want to hear, or is there something there? Did he accidentally spill the beans?
Yeah, so I don't think he's seen any file for a couple of reasons. Number one, he doesn't read, but fine, someone could read it to him. I get it, but that's a tiny reason. The real reason, guys, is look at the 2 things that he said. He said CIA was probably behind it. Well, brother, if you saw the file, you know it's either definite or not definite. What's the probably part? And then he said, and now whatever it might be, I have an idea. You have an idea of what it is. I thought you just said you read the file and made a decision not to release it. He didn't read no file, okay? And here's the even bigger reason. Donald Trump has a terminal case of verbal diarrhea. There isn't anything that is in his head that he wouldn't say out loud. So that's why he says outrageous things like, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, right? And I don't want poor people in my government. I only want rich people. I mean, he says all these crazy things that are just off the top of his head, let alone 1,000 other ones. So if he knew who killed JFK, he'd say it in a second. He'd be like, now look, I'm not supposed to say, but it was Bob Bauer. Bob Bauer, I know it. I saw the field, CIA plus I got it. There's no way he would stop. So he hasn't seen any file at all. Remember, he's not at all intellectually curious. There's only one thing that's going through Trump's mind at all times: Trump, 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 Trump. And JFK is not named Trump. So he didn't bother looking at it. He doesn't know what's in it. By the way, did the CIA kill JFK? A portion of the CIA working with ex-CIA almost definitely killed JFK. It's called The Devil's Chessboard. This is one of many great books about it, but if you read that, it is clear as day what happened with overwhelming evidence. If you think that Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK, you believe in a crazy conspiracy theory, okay? So, but I actually read several books about it with the actual evidence. You think Trump read any books or that file? So don't listen to what Trump is saying. And he's not gonna release it either. He always has a lot of BS promises and then never releases a goddamn thing. Nina, what do you think?
Oh, Jink, I'm cracking the hell up here. Well, first of all, you stole my thunder because I was gonna say, we know Trump ain't read that. I mean, what did he say? Whatever it says, I can't say. Well, the reason why Donald J. Trump cannot say is because he ain't read the thing. So, this is just Trump doing Trump. This is what he does. He lies. I mean, he said he was gonna release and then he didn't release and now he's blaming it on other people. This is what he specializes in. So can't trust most words. I won't say anything, but most words that comes out of that man's mouth. And Jink, listen, you stole my thunder on that one, baby. We know he didn't read it. And if he did know, we would all know. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, he accidentally even admitted the other day that he lost the election. Right? Because he just says I mean, when I lost the election, oh right, we're pretending I won the election. When I won the election, yeah, that's what I mean.
When it was stolen from me.
Yeah, it was stolen from me, yeah. Well, it was, you little baby, isn't it? Okay, so we'll read that file later. Okay, look, Trump's an amazing guy because if I was the president, I think they're all amazing in a sense. If I was the president, first thing I'd read is the JFK file. Then I'd read the alien file, yeah, exactly. Okay? And why? It's, yeah, I got important business, I'm gonna do that too. But aren't you curious? Aren't you curious? But Trump isn't curious because the only thing going through his head is Trump, 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 Trump. Yeah.
Jink, it's like Mr. Smith in the first Matrix. Me. I mean, he is the real life Mr. Smith.
Yeah, totally. I can't believe that half the country's following this guy. Fine, 35, 40%, whatever.
He's entertaining.
He is entertaining. Yeah, that I get, totally. As Anna says all the time, he'd be the best insult comic in the country. If he just dropped out of politics and did that, I'd go pay for the show. Because he says hilarious things all the time. Like, oh, I know who did it. CIA was probably behind it.
You think, Mr. President, there's some breadcrumbs. I mean, what are you using to make that analysis?
Yeah, hilarious. All right, everybody check out Rebel Headquarters. That's where you're gonna find Jordan videos. Everybody check out Insurgents Podcast. So that's where you're gonna find more of the genius ramblings of Jordan Ewell. And _genius. And of course, everybody check out wearesomebody.org, wearesomebody.org. Nina, Jordan, thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep, and when we come back, guys, Colombia has banned criticizing Israel, and every freshman entering has to pledge to not say anything against Zionism. I don't know if they'll be thrown off campus if they violate the pledge. But that seems like a great idea. I bet it won't drive up anti-Semitism. I bet everybody will be thrilled that they're not allowed to criticize one and only one country. I think this is gonna work out great for them. Let's come back and talk about it.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier, and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either.
Drop it. All right, power panel, Cenk Uygur, Francesca Fiorentini, Jackson White with you guys. Jackson's on Rebel Headquarters. Francesca has the Habituation Room in our podcasting network. And Jackson also is the host of Politics and Paper, so check that out if you can as well. All right, we got a great hour for you guys. Franny, take it away.
All right, let's start with some not terrible news. The Supreme Court did something not awful for the first time in a while. They upheld a federal law that allows domestic abusers, prevents domestic abusers from getting guns. Just basic stuff that's been on the books since 1968, that's right, so thank God. And by a swift majority, 8-1 in fact, and we'll discuss who the dissenting opinion was, but Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for that majority and said the court had, quote, no trouble coalescing around the idea that an individual who poses a threat can be denied access to weapons. Quote, our tradition of firearm regulation allows government to disarm individuals who present a credible threat to the physical safety of others. Thank you, justices, we think, although there's more, because there's other shoes that are dropping on this, in fact, a lot of shoes. But what about that? What about keeping guns out of the hands of domestic abusers or those who have restraining orders against them? Well, that goes back to 1968, a Gun Control Act, Graphic 4, and subsequent amendments that prohibit anyone convicted of a felony and anyone subject to domestic violence protective order from possessing a firearm. The intended effect of this new legislation is to extend the firearms ban to anyone convicted of a misdemeanor crime of domestic violence and save people's lives, mostly women's lives, but entire families as well. And there's a lot of data to support that when domestic abusers have firearms, they are used to mass kill people, not only their family members, but others. So according to the Johns Hopkins Center for Gun Violence Solutions, nearly half of women murdered in the United States are killed by a current or former intimate partner. More than half of these intimate partner homicides are by firearm. Women are 5 times more likely to be murdered by an abusive partner when the abuser has access to a gun. And then more broadly, right? Mass killings, we know in this country, those are measured by 4 people or more killed, right? And those usually actually are happening inside the home. So mass killings committed by a family member far outnumber the public mass killings, according to a data set compiled by USA Today, Associated Press, and Northwestern. Such incidents are 7 times more likely to take place in a home or other shelter, and one has occurred on average every 3.5 weeks for the past 2 decades. So again, 4 or more people killed. Now I know you're wondering, well, if people who are domestic abusers don't have access to firearms right now, what's going on? Well, sadly, a lot of domestic abuse, for good reason, some obviously because of fear, doesn't get reported. A lot of people don't have restraining orders on the people in their lives who are threatening them every single day, ergo, they are able to access firearms. So thankfully, the court decided that no, that should stay in place. It's doing a good enough job as is. There's one dissenter, guys, and I want you to figure, just take a wild guess who you think it might be. Okay, that's enough time. It was this guy. It was this guy. Of course, which is weird because he's also in sort of a domestic relationship that's quite famous. So I'm like, why does he want access to a gun? What's going on? No, but so that is Justice Clarence Thomas, of course, who wrote, the court and government do not point to a single historical law revoking a citizen's Second Amendment right based on the possible interpersonal violence. Yet in the interest of ensuring the government can regulate one subset of society, heaven forbid we regulate the abusers, today's decision puts at risk the Second Amendment rights of many more. Now the reason I wanted to wait on that is because there's actually, he's speaking to the 2022 Supreme Court decision in the New York Rifle Association versus Bruin that actually overruled a New York state law that had limits on concealed carry, right? And that 2022 law threw a bunch of state gun laws into disarray. And so now all these cases are coming before the court, like, is this 1968, domestic abuser law a violation of the Second Amendment or not? And there are more that are coming down the pike. For example, can you be a drug offender like Hunter Biden and still possess a weapon? Can you be a felon and possess a weapon like Donald Trump cannot in the state of New York? So that's why this is all bubbling up now. So we've avoided this one case, but there are cases that are coming down the pike because of that 2022 decision.
Yep. So I'm going to explain how Hunter Biden is actually might be critical in this entire question of gun rights in America, and in a way that the right wing might not expect at all. But one of our members, Wang Jun, wrote in, "Wait, SCOTUS did something right again? Are they sick?" So watch the show Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern. Be part of the show. For the members, we read your comments. And I'm going to address that. By the way, it's tyt.com/team, and we'll have the link in the description box below to become a member and be part of the show. So this is not an anti-gun decision. This is an anti-crime case. That is why almost all the conservatives joined the liberal judges in saying, yes, we can still treat criminals this way. Because for them, they're thinking in terms of taking away rights of criminals, right? For the liberal judges, they're thinking, well, okay, we want to make sure that there's less gun violence and we want to protect against domestic violence, right? So that's why it's nearly a unanimous decision. The one dissenter is Clarence Thomas because he's mental. And so I'm going to back it up. Let me explain what the ruling, his original ruling that Francesca was referring to, and the insane argument that was made in this case that he bought. So the original ruling was, in order to interpret the Second Amendment and gun rights, you have to apply whatever the founding fathers would have thought in the 1700s. But the founding fathers didn't have computers or the internet or any of the things that we have, or AR-15s or AK-47s or bump stocks or RPGs. It doesn't make any sense.
But they definitely didn't hit their wives.
Yeah, well, actually, that's where it comes into play here, Franny, because the opposing counsel made the argument that the founding fathers didn't mind domestic violence at all. And that's actually true. There were no laws like that. You could beat your wife, you could beat your slaves, you could beat your slaves who you were raping. I mean, look, all those things were totally free to do back then if you were a white male landowner, right? So they said, we're using Clarence Thomas's logic, so of course you could hit your wife and own a gun. Almost all of them did back then. And Clarence Thomas was like, yeah, that makes sense, yep. And the other judges are like, no, justices are like, no. That doesn't make any sense. They're like, they had crimes back then, and your rights could be taken away for crimes. Even if we're using Clarence's logic in the previous case, we could still say, yes, these happen to be the crimes that are punished today, and hence, even by the 1700 logic, you could still say that if you're committed a crime of domestic violence, you're not allowed to own a gun.
Yeah.
That is clearly true, even with that absurd Clarence Thomas precedent from earlier. The only person who doesn't agree is Clarence Thomas, who thinks he wants to go back to the 1700s, but I'm not sure that he's thought it through.
Yeah, maybe not fully. And this is, I feel like the Second Amendment gun rights is the most principle for principle's sake issue that America has. Because Clarence Thomas's dissent basically was, well, America's never done anything about gun violence before, so why start now? I mean, that's essentially what I got from it. I don't have a law degree, but that's what it seemed like it said to me. And as time has progressed, I've really been thinking just about how it seems more and more like Americans can't really handle having firearms at all. Like, it's easy to reflexively say that we have the rights to them, and that's true. And you can't group everybody into, the lunatic category who's going to go and do some mass shootings. But just today, three people were killed and 8 others wounded in, I think, Fortis, Arkansas. I'm pretty sure there was a mass shooting today, and it just keeps happening and happening. Yeah. And usually it's committed by people who probably maybe didn't need to have weapons at all. So it just kind of reflects to me the sad state that we're in a country to where we're rejoicing that the Supreme Court, well, maybe not rejoicing, but clapping our hands a little bit that the Supreme Court maintained this rule. Yeah. But they just did what they did with bump stocks and Roe and everything else. So it's,
Yeah, exactly. Which is, it's so wild to be like, there should be no law that doesn't have historical precedent around guns. But there weren't bump stocks back then. There weren't AR-15s back then. So what are we talking about? I mean, at a certain point, you're totally right, Jackson. It's just make believe. It's all on principle. It's all politics. I'm glad that Justice John Roberts and the other conservative, justices ruled this way, but who knows what's going to happen in the future. And it is interesting that if they were to overturn or change laws around like whether drug users and drug offenders can have firearms, they'd be undoing Hunter Biden's conviction, which is like maybe they're seeing the writing on the wall, like, okay, we can't do that because but yeah, I mean, I also think it's wild that this was settled law. States can make their own gun laws until 2 years ago, and now they're just creating extra work for themselves to redo and re-rule on a bunch of stuff that was already ruled on. I mean, wow, I love, we just make really good use of our time in this country.
Yeah, so let's go to Hunter Biden and how he plays into the Second Amendment here. Because to follow up on what Franny is saying, so if you can have your gun taken away for domestic violence, which is a crime, could you also have your gun taken away for having a drug offense? And so in Hunter Biden's case, he did not disclose that he was doing drugs while he filled out that form to get the gun, right? And that's the crime that he was convicted of. So if the Supreme Court rules as they did today on the domestic violence issue in the Hunter Biden case, there's a good chance that that means, yeah, no, that's it. If you did drugs, you're not allowed to own a gun. Well, I guess we're gonna have to take away hundreds of millions of guns in the country, and NRA and the gun owners and Republicans, so they're all gonna lose their minds in mass confiscation. So now the reality is, of course, no one gets charged with that crime except Hunter Biden. There's only the difference between him and anyone else who's ever been charged with that crime is everyone else had an underlying crime. So they went to go rob a bank, plus they lied while they were getting the gun about how they had done drugs, right? So then they'll get them on the underlying crime and this crime, right? But by itself, no one is ever charged with it. This was the most political prosecution I've probably ever seen.
Well, also, nobody lies on those forms when you're trying to get a gun.
No.
Nobody.
By the way, Republicans, the Second Amendment gun rights guys, you didn't lie about anything. You didn't get anything wrong in those forms. Maybe for some of you, you're like, oh no, I didn't, and I got everything. Maybe, okay, good. And a lot of you are thinking, is that really the crime we charged Hunter Biden with? Yeah, it is. So you're in a situation where the Supreme Court is gonna have to either say, take away the guns of and lock up, I don't know, 100 million Americans, and the Second Amendment doesn't mean anything anymore because you all did pot at some point.
Right.
Or, of course, Hunter Biden's prosecution was unconstitutional. So those are your choices.
Well, and speaking of Hunter Biden too, and everything that was just laid out, I think it was Thomas Massey and maybe a couple of other Republicans who dissented in the decision because they were pointing this out as well. Again, another example of principle for principle's sake. Sometimes they can be lined up on the right side because, as far as I know, Thomas Massey's a bit of a goofball. But on this one, he was like, hold on, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't do anything about guns whatsoever, even if it's Hunter Biden. So that's how you know they're dedicated and they're serious about it.
Yeah, no, Jackson's right, and a bunch of them did it. Matt Gaetz also said the same thing. Even Lindsey Graham said it.
What Matt Gaetz says was boring.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't even like this charge.
Okay, but it was only after he was convicted. They were all like, had their pitchforks and, God, make sure Hunter Biden goes to jail. And then they're like, he's going to jail. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we didn't mean it. Don't ever charge anyone else with that. It was obviously political. We just wanted to punish him because we don't like him and his last name is Biden. But all of our constituents have broken that same law. So please.
Matter of fact, don't talk about it too much because gun ownership is kind of our thing and now he's like a Democrat's son and it's weird and kind of makes him look like cool and good. No, focus on our felon. Our felon's really cool.
Yeah, so, all right, well, Supreme Court's gonna rule on that too and it's gonna be decisive either way. So I have that to look forward to. You all have that to look forward to. And then if they rule against Hunter Biden, I'll be celebrating because that means there'll be a lot less guns in America. And if they rule for Hunter Biden, then we'll have the irony of the guys who wanted Hunter Biden in jail celebrating Hunter Biden's win in the Supreme Court. America. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT. Don't forget, Hostmates on Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern. And I forgot to tell you guys, I'm going to kick everybody's ass. So we're competing against each other. Everybody else you see on there is going to look like Dave Kohler in the middle there after I'm done with them. And I plan to have that look throughout the entire contest that you're seeing in that picture. So watch me either win and be unbearable and entertaining, or lose, and then everybody has a ton of fun. So tyt.com/Hostmates to play along with us. Make sure you're checking that out. And Charlemagne the God at the top of the show at 6 o'clock Eastern on Monday with me and Anna. So it's going to be a great, great day on Monday. Make sure everybody tunes in then. All right, Tony C writes in, did Thomas make that decision by candlelight? I like that a lot. Everybody got to go all back to the 1700s. Yep. Exactly the same way. Deanne Loso says, when my ex-husband was arrested for domestic assault, the police asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no because I was frightened, but because I had visible signs of violence, the police said they were going to arrest him. I later found out that he had a gun. That was frightening. And the stat that Franny read you is devastating. You know, if someone who's committing domestic abuse has a gun, oof, that person who's being abused is in massive trouble. Yeah. Gigantic, disproportionate percentages in likelihood of getting hurt or killed. So that's a very important law that the Supreme Court upheld. So don't lose focus that I'm super happy about the ruling.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that with us. That's a lot, but it's important to know, and it's also important to know a lot of people don't press charges because this is your partner. You know, you love them, right? Ostensibly.
Yeah, at that moment.
At that moment, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, Meowster wrote, and that's probably why Trump stole a bunch of random top secret files. He forgot to read the top secret files while he was in there and suddenly realized when he lost, he didn't have more time. So that's a fun thesis, and I don't know if you're half joking, but no, he didn't plan on reading any of those files because he didn't plan on reading the rest of his life. He doesn't read, he can't read past the page, period.
Have you ever seen when he came out of the courthouse and the papers he was looking at literally had like a giant picture on it and a few words? Like it's real, it's real.
Like I think he literally has trouble reading, period.
Yep.
So, but that's the imbecile that we elected once and are likely to elect again because an imbecile decided that it was a great idea to run at 81 years old when he could barely walk or talk. And all the imbeciles in Washington supported him. All right, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Franny, and Jackson with you guys. Also, Alo Benstein just became a member through tyt.com/team. Love having you here. And I'm just gonna read one quick comment because it's so good. Dreamer76 says, if the government were worried about my kids and their mental health, we would have universal health care.
Yeah.
Exactly, and not be, we're banning social media because we care about your kids so much. Do you? All right, anyway, let's get started with the next story. I'm gonna start it. So This story is going to have a component where I am going to be super mad at the school, the college that I went to, because they are now doing propaganda that is mandated for all incoming students and teachers. You must never protest Israel. Now, they don't quite say it that way, but it's really close, as you'll see. So everyone must do the propaganda. We'll get to that in a minute, but first, the full story, Franny.
Yeah, there's two parts to this, but the big news is that charges have now been dropped against the majority of Columbia students who were arrested at the end of April while they were occupying Hamilton Hall, that they had renamed Hind Hall in honor of the young 6-year-old Gazan who was murdered in her car with her entire family. To refresh your memory, that occupation took place under less than 24 hours, less than a day. The students had occupied that building in protest of the genocide in Gaza, but specifically asking Columbia University to divest from Israel and divest their tuition money from Israel. And then the NYPD, at the behest of the president of Columbia, did this.
Hundreds of New York City police officers in riot gear moving into Columbia University. SWAT teams rolling in. One by one, police officers seen filing in on an extended ramp into the second floor of Columbia's Hamilton Hall. In the late night hours, police forming a line around the perimeter, clearing protesters blocking the entrance. Once inside, going floor by floor, room by room. NYPD using flashbangs. At least 100 people arrested, led away, hands tied behind their backs with zip ties.
So that's just a refresher of just how much machinery was brought in by the NYPD to break up this. I would call it peaceful. It's a student occupation. It's been happening since time immemorial in this country, but there you go. Now, even though hundreds were arrested, and this is according to Reuters, the charges that stuck were with about 46 of those students. So those 46 protesters were arrested on that night of April 30th for their 20-hour takeover of the academic building were initially charged with trespass in the 3rd degree, which is a misdemeanor. However, just today, Stephen Millen, a prosecutor in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, told the court on Thursday his office would not prosecute 30 of those 46 who were Columbia students at the time of the arrest, nor 2 who were Columbia employees, citing prosecutorial discretion and lack of evidence. And part of that was that the charges weren't, they didn't know whether they were destroying property. They couldn't see inside of there, so the charges were dropped. There's still 13 students who are, their charges have not yet been dropped, and 1 who is being prosecuted. So they're seeking to prosecute 1 of those 46 arrested. His name is James Carlson. He's not affiliated with Columbia, this is graphic 4, and he's charged with criminal mischief and arson for setting an Israeli flag alight prior to the takeover and for damaging a police surveillance camera in jail. So that's the charge that's actually moving forward. Again, when this happened, I knew this would also be the result. That ultimately there would be nothing to convict these students on, even though many of them were brutalized that night by the NYPD. They were involved in a protest, in an occupation. It was for a reason. It had really nothing to do with anyone but their own university. So I'm not surprised they dropped these charges. Of course, this is all being painted by the right as Alvin Bragg drops charges. You know, obviously Alvin Bragg, who hates Donald Trump, but it's all Manhattan's fault. How dare they? We'll get him on. What? They don't actually have the evidence. The prosecution tried, they don't have it, and so they dropped it. But guys, what do y'all think?
So we're gonna get to much worse from Columbia in terms of the new program in a second. But on this one, so have you heard of the protester that ran over other protesters with their car? I mean, there was real violence right outside of Columbia. Oh, right, it was a pro-Israel protester that ran over a little old lady. And so, did you hear anything about that? Were there congressional hearings about it? Is there giant new propaganda things that Columbia students have to go through to tell them how evil pro-Israel radicals are, et cetera, or about Islamophobia or any? No, nothing. But we're told that the peace protesters were the violent ones. Oh, while you're not looking, we're gonna drop all the charges because we were lying all along. There was no violence at all from the peace side. Same thing at UCLA. Peace protesters were peaceful. And a lot of them, by the way, in both places were Jewish. But we all heard, oh, no, it's not about Israel. It's that they're evil anti-Semites who are foaming at the mouth and all violent, et cetera. So who did the violence at UCLA? Pro-Israel radicals. Okay, and that night they beat up the peace protesters for 2-3 hours straight. No one was arrested that night. Many weeks later, only one person was arrested, even though you see all their faces, we know all their names, and the cops refused to arrest most of them. But the other side got arrested. The ones who got beat up at UCLA got arrested, and then have to figure out, can they graduate, or are these universities just gonna steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from them and not give them a diploma after they spent all that money at Columbia and UCLA because they dared to criticize Israel, which is apparently the biggest sin in America. Yeah. Keep it real, guys. If you think this is really, oh my God, we're really concerned about bigotry. Are you? Because I don't see you doing anything about bigotry against Muslims.
Yeah.
We get death threats daily, 200 times a day. Are you doing anything about that? Where's the congressional hearings? At least Stefanik, where the hell are you, right? No, you could hate Muslims all day, all night. You could, and it isn't about Jews, Muslims, Christians. It's just one country that cannot be criticized in this country. It's Israel. Yep. And by the way, you can say anything you want about America. That's totally fine. You just can't criticize a different country. Or as I said, much worse in a second. But Jackson, thoughts on this?
Well, the most ironic thing to me about how much of a cardinal sin it is to criticize Israel in this country at all is how unbalanced it is with the current conflict going on. Like, it's so obvious who has the guns, who has the influence, who has the big weapons on their side. Israel has the United States and a bunch of other countries on their side that continuously supply them with tax dollars to give them programs that we want, that we lack, that we should have. But I mean, how much of a grumpy old creep do you have to be to want to see these kids punished and disciplined for having courage to stand up and demonstrate their First Amendment rights, to speak up about an issue that's so clearly not fair? And Netanyahu, I mean, the other day he came out. How entitled is he to come out and pretend like, oh, we just stopped giving him weapons? And again, it's not just the weapons we've given him recently, but everything that America gives him through, again, American working tax dollars. So it's just, no one's buying it. And that's one of the biggest reasons why Joe Biden is in the situation that he's in, because we live in a time where you can't just tell people what it is. We live in a digital age. Yeah. And Gen Z and millennials and pretty much everybody can see what's happening with their own eyes. But yeah, it's just really pitiful to see adults, just trying to discourage a bunch of kids from standing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad these charges were dropped, but there is worse because the rest of Colombia will be punished for the actions of these brave, peaceful protesters that night. So as we all know, the protests against the ongoing assault on Gaza that have swept campuses have really brought up discussions of anti-Semitism, founded, unfounded, alleged, imagined, a good faith, bad faith, but they're there. And specifically in Colombia, one thing that happened in the fallout of the demonstrations and the encampment there was the creation of an anti-Semitism task force. And that's a task force we're gonna talk about because it seems now they have plans for Columbia students to take an anti-Semitism orientation, a required orientation, much like any freshman orientation, but this time about anti-Semitism. And we are not learning this from the task force itself. We're actually learning this from Haaretz that did a report and an interview with 3 of the members on that task force. So numerous participants in the task force, including its 3 co-chairs, Columbia faculty members, many of whom are outspoken Israel supporters, and more on that in a second, openly discussed the not yet published report with the newspaper before any such information was shared with the university's community or even their colleagues. So what's the training gonna entail? So now that we know they spilled the beans, what's gonna be in it? The training and orientation are designed to provide everyone beginning their time at the university with initial knowledge of what's acceptable and unacceptable in our community, similar to programs on sexual harassment and other issues. We aim for consistency, a consistent set of rules that are consistently enforced, ensuring everyone feels they're being treated fairly within the system. That sounds good. Are they going to be consistent? And also, what do they mean by anti-Semitism? And this, I think, is the biggest question and has been the question circling criticisms of Israel that have come up in the last 9 months since the assault on Gaza. So the task force was slow to define anti-Semitism, but now they confirmed to Haaretz that their definition of anti-Semitism will likely include chants calling for the annihilation of the Jewish state as being offensive to many Jews on campus. Chants criticizing the Israeli government will not be considered anti-Semitism in any way.
Is that right? Well, let's find out.
Well, what? Yeah. What's the okay? So who determines what means annihilation and what doesn't mean annihilation? It seems like this is just up for interpretation, and it seems like there's this very slippery slope. And actually, Jewish students on Columbia campus are naming that slippery slope into just conflating Israel with all Jews and criticizing Israel with criticizing with anti-Semitism. So there's an op-ed for the Columbia Spectator that 4 Jewish grad students wrote. They said, ever since the task force was announced, we feared that it would equate Zionism and Jewishness. All 3 co-chairs of the task force, Esther Fuchs, Nicholas Lehman, and David Scheiser, are members of the Academic Engagement Network, a Zionist advocacy organization, and 3 of them penned a statement supporting Columbia's ties to Israel. Oh, interesting. So the task force set up on anti-Semitism is actually a pro-Israel task force. And I went to the website, and we can read a little bit of what AEN, or the Academic Engagement Network's goals are. They say their mission is to mobilize networks of university faculty and administrators to counter anti-Semitism, oppose denigration of Jewish and Zionist identities, those are very as if they were one, and promote academic freedom and advance education about Israel. In other words, let me shorthand this for you, it's propaganda. And we know that Zionist propaganda often targets academics, professors who speak out about Palestine, and now students. Now 3 of them are part of this task force. Ergo, everyone's going to have to undergo an orientation that conflates or draws such a fine line that it has a chilling effect if anyone would ever dare speak out for the Palestinian people. But Cenk, to continue your thoughts about, does this apply equally to all students, to everybody?
Yeah, so as The Intercept explained, they're now calling anti-Zionism anti-Semitic. But wait, Zionism is a political ideology, and it was to set up the state of Israel, and it has upsides and downsides. I don't love using the word Zionism, but banning anyone saying that they're against Zionism, well, that's outrageous. That's a political ideology. So, okay, so let's say that you're a Palestinian and you happen to be in the area that Israel took over, and then your family was driven from your home and you were ethnically cleansed from that area. You're still not allowed to complain about it? No, because if you criticize Israel for doing that and you're against Zionism, that's it, you anti-Semite. You should just let your house be taken and never return to you, and you should be driven from your land, and shut up about it. Shut up. You're not allowed to criticize Israel. So it's this nonsense, oh, no, you can criticize Israel. You just can't criticize it in this way, that way, this way, that way. Yeah. Okay, does this apply to any other country, religion, etc.? Are they doing, so was there anti-Semitic comments at Columbia? Yes. Are there anti-Semitic comments at every college in every place? Yes. Are there also anti-black comments, anti-white comments, anti-Asian comments, anti-Muslim comments, anti-Christian comments? Of course. Of all those comments, which one is the most prevalent on college campuses or anywhere else? It's not close. By a landslide, anti-Muslim comments. Is there a giant committee filled with nothing but Muslim nation supporting people who are gonna do propaganda? Now, every student coming into Columbia must say that they will never criticize a Muslim nation that is racist and bigoted. If you say something against the beloved Muslim state of Saudi Arabia, you'll be kicked out of Columbia. Well, of course not, that's insane, right? Doing it about Israel, I know, I don't wanna break your heart, just as insane as doing it about Saudi Arabia. So, and to do it uneven, guys, it's not helping anybody. No. And that's part of why Jewish students are complaining. So I'm Turkish from background, right? If they said, oh, okay, Cenk, you went to Columbia, so because you're so special and important and the country you come from is just the greatest country in the whole world, we're gonna pass a law that, or a rule here, that everybody that comes into Columbia has to promise to never criticize Turkey, because we would consider that anti-Turkish. Okay, let's make it more specific. Zionism is about the foundation of Israel, right? So no one is allowed to criticize the foundation of Turkey. Well, a lot of Greeks were killed, Syrians were killed, or certainly Armenians were killed. But no, shush. You're not allowed to talk about the Armenian genocide because that's anti-Turkish and would hurt my feelings.
But you can talk about everything else, Cenk.
You can talk about everything else. Every other nation
can be stuff.
Every other nation can be criticized. Every other nation it's not racist to criticize them. The only nation where if you criticize it, by definition, you're a racist and a bigot, and you'll be driven from the school is Turkey. You know, my reaction would be, no, don't do that. Not only because it's an incredibly dumb idea, but because you'll get everyone to hate us. Because if you say there's only one people that cannot be criticized, everybody's gonna hate them. Don't you know anything about human nature? So that's why I use the analogy of a different country or a different religion, because if you apply it to any other religion or country, it sounds mental. Yeah. And people from that place would know that's a bad idea. Don't hurt us like that, because everyone will hate us. But when it comes to Israel, just the pro-Israel side is so blinded. They can't see it. They're like, no, we just tell all the students they're never allowed to criticize Zionism. Zionism is awesome. Say Zionism is awesome. Otherwise, I'm gonna kick you out of Columbia. You look like a lunatic, and you're gonna hurt your own people, let alone everyone else. Jackson.
Yeah, exactly. And as you pointed out, you're just basically isolating Israel to the point where it's just really easy to make assumptions, even if you don't know what Netanyahu's been up to, even if you don't know about the history of settlements. If you know nothing about that, you can just see it plain and clear now. Because at the end of the day, the whole AIPAC corporate money apparatus is losing the messaging war. They're losing the narrative war. And so ultimately next, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna own up to it, or are you just gonna try to sweep things under the rug and be quiet? Most likely the latter, but I don't think that the public is gonna let that go down because of how many innocent people are dying and how we're being exposed to it constantly. So, you know, it is what it is. They made their bed, and now they're losing the PR battle worldwide.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, just one comment out of thousands, my guess at Columbia. Look, I can tell you literally thousands of comments against me in a week that are, hey, go Muslim, go die. You're a terrorist scum, you should die. You're Turkish or Muslim or brown or whatever. Get raped, go die, do it. It's nobody gives a goddamn about it. Okay, you see it anywhere where you see me, you will see dozens of comments like that. Ain't nobody doing congressional hearings because no one in this country cares about Muslims. And so in the case of Columbia, one of the students reports, I told the offices at Columbia, the administration, that one of the Israeli protesters said, go get raped in Gaza. They didn't do anything about it. They don't care. So when you're uneven like that, and you can say anything you want about everybody else, but you're not allowed to say it about these people, you've set those people up for hatred. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. Terrible. But drunk on power, these alumni, et cetera, that are pushing this, they are not unilateral. They do not control everything. So, but in this case, these particular people have gotten this rule passed, and now the indoctrination begins. And I guarantee you it backfires. It's the worst idea I've ever seen. And right now, as an alumnus of Columbia, I'm absolutely embarrassed. And what am I gonna send my kids to Columbia now? And do they have to listen? And do they have to tell Columbia, oh, of course, sir, yes, Israel is great, sir. I will never criticize Israel or Zionism, sir. Of course, sir. Now, can I be allowed in, sir?
We should have anti-Semitism, we should have anti-hate and bigotry like orientations. But the fact that this was after a massive protest to stop the murder of innocent civilians, everyone knows what this is. It's so bald-faced, it's so clear, and it's so embarrassing. And that's why Jews are the ones leading this cause at Columbia to say no. We do not in our name. This is not the kind of anti-Semitism that we agree, the definition of anti-Semitism that we agree with.
Okay, super last thing. I just want to be clear. You do something that says, hey, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, hatred against Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, et cetera, is bad. No problem. We're all, okay, it's even. We're saying, hey, don't be jerks to one another, right? But this isn't that. This is not just anti-Semitism. Even if it was just anti-Semitism by itself, well, there's nothing wrong with being against anti-Semitism, right? But they say anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Of course. So that's just a backdoor way of saying, you're never allowed to criticize Israel. That's a completely different thing. And there's no other nation where they're going to do indoctrination that says you're not allowed to criticize that nation, their foundation, or anything about them, because that would be ridiculous. It's equally ridiculous when it's about Israel. All right, we got to go. We'll be right back. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Twitch. Dave Schmidt 311 said, Cenk, I just did a job for a Turkish immigrant. I gave him your dad's book as a housewarming gift. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. My dad's book is The Original Young Turk. That's the title of it. And you can get it at shoptyt.com as well. And don't forget Hostmates. That's Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern, Monday at 6 o'clock Eastern, Charlemagne the God. A. Marshall writes in, I love the way Fran presents the news.
Oh, thanks.
Here. The DeGosser writes in, I see what you did there, Cenk. Proactive and focus on joy. That's why you named them that? Pro-joy, no. But I did tell Joy that I named something Operation Joy, coincidentally. And she was, the first thing she did was look at Pro and go, so
amazing.
That did happen. Okay, Daisy Dragon writes in with another story, a personal story that's really interesting. Daisy Dragon said, my abusive ex had a gun that I knew was not registered and had the serial number removed. Scary deal.
Jesus.
That is, yeah, that's super scary. So again, the Supreme Court decision today was a good one. Civic Folly 86 says, this is the only country that calls bribery lobbying. It's ridiculous. I was talking to I've told this story a couple of times, to a mainstream media reporter, and I said that maybe the politicians are affected by the millions of dollars they get in campaign donations. And she said, that sounds pretty conspiratorial. I'm like, okay, wait. So your theory is that they are not affected by millions of dollars. Do you understand that that sounds conspiratorial? And in fact, that sounds insane.
Yeah.
And she's like, radical. Matt Gates on a white Ford Bronco says, 37 months with TYT, unbelievable. By the way, take away all the oxygen was the evil master plan of the movie Spaceballs, sucking the air from a planet. That was a reference to an analogy I made in the first hour. Sean Sarley says, tribalism is human nature. It really is that simple. That's totally right, Sean. And look, getting past your own tribe is really difficult. I did it and I paid a price. A lot of Turkish family and friends were really, really mad at me when I acknowledged the Armenian genocide and all of different things that the Turkish government has done. And a lot of Jewish people are going through the same thing with their families. It's bravery, we love them for it and we support them for it. Let's all stick together, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT. We have such little time, so thank you, Constantine, for the YouTube super chat. We appreciate you so much, and thank you to all the other folks that wrote in. We got to do the next story, Franny.
Yeah, let's just jump into this.
I know that RFK Jr. wants to try and get onto the stage on Thursday, and I'd love to have him, frankly, because I don't think he's much of a debater, and he's got some very liberal, radical left ideas. But I would love to have him, but you have to get certain numbers. That was the criteria, and he's way below those numbers. He's not coming close. So I hope to see him up there someday, but it looks to me like he's not going to qualify on many fronts.
Yes, the man who's most sad about RFK Jr. not qualifying for the first presidential debate, which is happening in under a week. He came close, and let's talk about it, because RFK Jr. and his team are so mad, they are now calling for CNN anchors Dana Bash and Jake Tapper to be thrown into jail, which feels very Trumpian, so someone's trying to get that MAGA vote. Now, of course, there are some rules that CNN laid out, which actually are based on just general federal rules about who can participate in these debates. But they said they must qualify on enough state ballots to be eligible for 270 electoral votes. It's a pretty tall order, but they also must earn 15% of support in 4 national polls that meet CNN's polling standards. The window for candidates to earn the qualifying polls opened March 13th and closes 7 days prior to the debate. And Kennedy got so close. Oh, if you're watching, he got so close. There were 3 polls that he came in over 15%, 17% on the Marquette University Law School poll, 16% on his CNN SSRS poll, 16% on a Quinnipiac University poll. But there was one more and he didn't get it. And also, he did not come close to getting the possibility of 270 electoral votes. CNN last Saturday had confirmed that actually RFK is only on the ballot in 6 states, which is worth 89 electoral votes. Earlier this week, NBC News confirmed Tennessee also put Kennedy on the ballot, but that still gives Kennedy only 100 potential electoral votes. So far short of the 270 he needs to meet the debate requirement. Obviously, RFK Jr. saw this all coming, so he's jumping out ahead of it with just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. He's filing a complaint with the FEC, the Federal Election Commission. He's arguing that CNN and Biden and Trump violated campaign finance laws, alleging that CNN colluded with Biden and Trump in scheduling the debate and setting debate qualification criteria, which the Kennedy team claims amounts to, quote, prohibited corporate contributions to both campaigns. Yeah, or they're the front runners, dog. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Kennedy argued that Trump and Biden would not be qualified on any state's ballots because their party nominating conventions will occur after the debate. That's actually kind of interesting. We're like, yeah, they haven't officially been nominated. We're all holding out hope that, Biden sort of steps out of the way at the last minute, but no, they're. So anyway, let's go to the juicy stuff, which is he, in a press release, the team said that CNN has persisted in this approach even after the FEC made clear the phrase presumptive nominee is not the FEC's debate regulation and therefore it cannot exempt CNN from the prohibition on excessive campaign contributions. As the Commission on Presidential Debates explains, until the conventions takes place, we don't know who the official nominees will be. That means CNN and every member of CNN who's participating in planning, executing, and holding this debate is at risk of prosecution, as happened to Michael Cohen for violating campaign finance laws. The risk is now acute given that any further violation would be knowing and willful and thus could carry with it serious jail time. In other words, don't you dare hold that debate without me, otherwise you're going to jail in my mind. Cenk?
Yeah, so threatening jail was absurd. So deeply counterproductive for reasons I'm gonna explain in a second. But overall, is Kennedy right? I think he's largely right. And so definitely for the next debate, I don't think that it should be even close. But he arguably has an even better argument in this debate. So they say, hey, you didn't qualify for 270 yet. But technically, he's absolutely right. Biden and Trump haven't either. But it's not just technically. If Franny's right, there is some chance that after this debate, Biden steps down and is not the candidate. So, and RFK Jr. might go all the way and likely will go all the way and be a candidate, but Biden might not. So why is RFK not allowed, but Biden is allowed? So that's a hypocrisy right there. And second of all, standard is 4 polls above 15%. That is a maniacal standard. Above 10% is a minor miracle for a third party candidate, right? And you got 3 polls that have you above 15% at 17, 16, and 16. I've seen polls at 18%, but that's not good enough. No. So look, did they want to keep RFK Jr. out of this debate? Definitely. Definitely. They were going to find a way to keep him out no matter what. So is he right to complain about that? Yes. Is he right to do lawsuits? Yes. And remember, his background is as a lawyer. And he's a really good lawyer. So messing with him on that is a bad idea. But when you jump the shark and you say criminal prosecution, what that's going to do is it's going to feed into the narrative they have about you. The guy is kooky, the guy is weird, etc. Don't threaten to arrest CNN anchors. It's not going to play well. So
But the last guy who did it became president. Sorry,
that's
Jack.
true. But with Bobby Kennedy, this often happens where he's, he might be right, but he sets himself up to get lambasted by saying something that goes over the top. Jackson, last thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely reinforces kind of the general unserious image that too many people have of him. I think it's very true that, CNN, nobody else really wanted RFK on the stage so that we could just, get to what everybody's expecting. Because also, I think at the end of the day, people generally know that RFK is not going to be president, which just highlights the general issues with our system, period. As you pointed out, getting to 15% as a third party is pretty unheard of. And then even if you do that, what does that really mean when you have one vote? So that, and then all the corruption, there's so many problems. But this is just one issue that brings that to light.
He might be on it in September.
Yeah, and listen, guys, I don't know if you think I'm crazy, but I don't think it's impossible for him to win. It's impossible normally for a third party candidate to win because they need $10 to $20 million to get on the ballot. So that's why people like Cornel West struggle so much. And it's impossible to win when you're at 2 to 3%. It is not at all impossible to win when you're at 15%. All you need to do is get on a debate stage. How do I know that? That's exactly what Ross Perot did. And he would have won if he hadn't dropped out the first time. Right. But what's the difference between Ross Perot and RFK Jr.? Ross Perot was a billionaire and the establishment loved him because he was super rich. RFK is also wealthy, but not anywhere like Ross Perot, and he's against the system, not for the system. So all of a sudden, same numbers, but different result. So if they let him into the debates, and given how extraordinarily weak Joe Biden is, somebody's going to take on Donald Trump, but I'm not yet positive that Biden is going to come in second. So we'll see what happens. All right, we got a bonus episode for you guys, and it's got Tucker Carlson versus Sean Hannity, who is going to be more able to influence Donald Trump and pick the vice president. Interesting. Hit the join button below. We'll see you there.